Well, I definitely have some questions written down. I know you guys, as I have your Facebook pulled up, because I know some of your fans submitted a lot.
Uh-oh.
But I basically just typically like to have a conversation. So, I've heard the song. I thought that it was very well done. It's my personal opinion. I thought you guys, like I said at the beginning of our call, just, kept enough of what it is while mixing yourself into it. But why a cover and why this song in particular?
Will gave me a call. I think it was a couple months ago, and he was like, "We're working on new original stuff, but in the meantime, we wanted to kind of put something out quick that we didn't have to work on as a band, like writing and shaping from scratch." So
Mhm.
obviously it's a cover song, so there's a blueprint to work with, and then so I think that was like uh, kind of something to gel as a band, because this is the first time that we're all working together with his new lineup here, and to kind of get something out there to the fans while we finish up recording the rest of the real shit, So it's kind of a tide over. It's kind of a thing to get the band acquainted with each other, and it's also just a fucking cool song, and we heavied it up and made it our own thing. So it's fun.
So with you guys being all over the country, and having to kind of rehearse that way and record that way, um, I'm assuming that you guys have all been in different bands before where you've been in the same room as part of the process. So with this, how has it been as far as difficulty wise? Do you think that this is something that could be long term for other bands? How has that worked for you overall?
I don't know. I think technology has fortunately, for us in our case, been very, for lack of no pun intended, very instrumental. It's become another instrument for us to use. So,
Well, I hope that this isn't the new way to do things. I mean, I'm old school in that regard. I like to get into the room with people and vibe and get that chemistry going, and bounce ideas off each other. And it's also a hell of a lot quicker when you're in the same room. You can just be like, "Hey, don't do that," or "That's awesome, do that," or "Play this beat," and then it happens, as opposed to emailing back and forth. But yeah, I mean, obviously for this band in particular, we do all live in different states right now, so that's going to be kind of the way it is. Um, until we can actually get into a recording studio, or can get into a rehearsal space together. But it was interesting when we did the couple shows together that, yeah, it was all learned via email, which I've never done anything like that in my life. So, um, you know, obviously Will, knows the songs inside and out. So and I didn't have him to show me how to play it or anything. So I just learned, I'm an ear trained musician. So I just
Fortunately for you, right?
What's that?
I said, fortunately for you.
Yeah, so I just listen to stuff, and I figure out what's going on the guitar neck. But it was quite interesting to play those shows because there was no rehearsal. I had known Will for like 20 years or whatever, but the other guys I had met the night before, and the next night we were on stage. So it was actually pretty rad to do it that way, in a weird way.
yeah.
And it turned out quite nice, and the group of guys that we have going on are all top notch, so it sounded pretty legit to my ears.
So you guys released a mini LP in 2014, and then this single, are you doing it on your own or through a label?
So we're doing it on our own. The Aftermath EP, which is what I think you're talking about. That was also done independently as well.
Oh, okay.
That was sort of my first foray into, putting music out independently, which it's tough. It's not easy. It's for sure.
So do you think that there's even a need for labels at this point in general, or do you think that we're going to see more of the independent route, especially with the way that technology is nowadays, where you can basically do everything on your own?
I can answer that as someone that's been on a couple different record labels and then now as an independent artist. In my personal experience, I mean, Will might have a different opinion. I like being on a label. I was never one of these guys that had that Kurt Cobain mentality of like, you know, fuck the industry and fuck the label. I always saw it as like a team of pros spread across the country or be it the world helping you out with all the
Mhm.
shit that you don't know how to do and the stuff you don't like to do. And then you could focus on the music and the stuff that you're like we are good at. I'm not a marketer, you know, so like so I always personally liked having a team of people, and you know, it takes a lot of the workload off. To me, these days, there's like musicians are doing twice the amount of work
Mhm.
with half of the results, you know. So if that makes any sense to you, so that's
No,
where
that
I
makes sense.
stand on things. I don't know. Will might have had a better or worse experience than me at labels. I don't know.
I would agree with that. I mean, there's definitely something to be said working with a professional group of people, which is really what a record label is,
Yeah.
um, and having their expertise. Although you know they're human too, they're not always right. They don't always get it right, but by and large they do. And I think also too, there's the financial aspect. They have
Mhm.
a war chest, of money at their disposal to use that most artists don't have. And so that's something that I think every independent out there in the world, is faced with as well. So on the other hand, being independent, it's kind of like growing your own garden, right? Like you planted it and you get to go out and harvest it and eat it, and you feel real proud and warm and fuzzy about it. Um, Double-edged sword. I don't know. So it's the grass is greener syndrome for me.
No, I understand that. Um, so you guys have
The
the
planes.
dropping on, but
Who's under the airport? I mean,
They're trying to.
it is actually just started snowing here, believe it or not. And what is it, May 8th or something? It's
Yeah,
crazy.
the weather's.
where are you located?
Yeah, right. So the viewers, I'm in Pennsylvania, up near a town called Scranton, and I just looked out the window a minute ago, and there was like little flakes coming. I don't know what's going on. So we got that, and we got what else? We got killer bees or something coming in.
Yeah,
too.
killer hornets, murder
Yeah.
hornets, murder hornets. Yeah.
So is there going to be eventually a full length album that's going to come from this? Is this kind of like a kickoff, or are you guys writing anything? I know you guys are all in quarantine right now, but
Hasn't stopped us yet. No, we have a bunch of song ideas that we're working on. There's a couple that I had written not too long ago that we're just sort of using to sort of start off of, but we're all starting to sort of chip in, and my hope is that we amass a good amount of songs and get them recorded, and we can decide whether we want to try to court any label interest that may be out there, or whether we feel like the best way is to go independently and sort of again kind of grab the people that we feel like can help us get it done on our own. I'm not sure what Aaron's thought is, but
Yeah, so it's weird where like we reverted back to almost like the 1950s. We're like in a single culture now, right? So a lot of bands just release one track at a time. When I started listening to music in the early, like late 80s, early 90s, everything was album based, and I really personally like, hopefully, a cool band will make a good whole record. So that's not the current climate, but for me, I'm just like, whatever's the winning move. If the fans like it better one at a time, then do that. If the fans like it better five at a time, to do that. But if I had to personally pick, I'm an album guy. I like to listen to whole records and music growing up. But
I'm the same way. I'm an album person, so I get it.
Yeah.
So going back to the single for a second, because there's some really good questions that different fans have asked here on your page. So was there a particular inspiration behind picking Uninvited as the single? Did you guys kick around any other covers, or was it just like, this is what we're doing, like dead set on it?
Well, I like Alanis Morissette, so I mean, she's a great songwriter, and honestly, like, I've seen her interview a number of times, and I think she's like a wicked smart chick. So that adds to her whole mystique for me. But I always liked that song. I mean, maybe some of the younger people watching this might not even know it, but there was, I don't know when it came out, 1997, 98, something like that. But I always loved that track. And I like the orchestral, in the original, like the orchestra stuff, and I like that. I like a lot of like Middle Eastern music, and it has a little bit of that sprinkled in, and it's just a rad song. And also too, I know Will's vocal range a bit, at least in my head. I can hear where his his strong suit is, and I in my head it sounded like the perfect range for his voice. And once I heard him sing, I was like, God damn, sounds good. So, I mean, that's like, obviously it's originally sung by a female. It was written in her key and her range, but Will killed it. He did a great job. So,
well, thank you.
I agree. So you mentioned that you have a lot of stuff already written. Is there a particular concept behind everything that's written, or is it just kind of just coming out? There's no like particular theme to it, or basically, how does your writing style work when it comes to things like that? Do you go in with a how you want to do things and what you want to write about, or do you just let it all come out as it comes?
Lyrically speaking?
Both, because I know that there is a way to do things lyrically, but the instruments are just as important as lyrics, and they play off each other.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I'm sure Will's process is different than mine. He's also a great guitar player and arranger and stuff too. So it depends. Sometimes I'll just sit on the couch and write, and when I'm watching TV, I have an acoustic in my hand and mess around, and I'm like, that's cool. And then I'll record it on my phone, and I'll like entertain it the next day down in the studio or something, and mess around with it. And it builds up from there. I mean, you can't go wrong with a good riff. That's a great place to start. I mean, to me, a good riff and a hooky chorus and all that stuff never goes out of style to me. But that's a good place to start. Sometimes, I mean, again, Will can speak to his way of doing stuff. Sometimes I'll start with a song title. I'll just be like, man, that's a good song title, and I'll work backwards from there. That's a little bit of a harder process to kind of shape something around what you think is a good title. But I mean, there's infinite ways to come up with a good tune, and it is some of them write themselves. I've written songs in 10 minutes. I'm like, God damn, like it's already existed. Those are usually, I find over time, looking back, those are the best ones. And then in my experience, the ones looking back, the songs that I really overthought and worked on and chipped away forever and tried to make it something, squeeze it, like put the square in the round hole, or whatever that phrase is, those are the ones I look back, I'm like, but the ones that are just like simple and just they're easy to write, I hear that in the music, and they seem to wear better with time. But I'm sure Will has a different process, or maybe it's the same. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, mine's not. I wouldn't say mine's too much different than that. I mean, I agree. Some songs just kind of write themselves. Other ones you got to work a little harder for. I mean, I've got hundreds, if not thousands, of song ideas sitting on a hard drive that will never see the light of day. But it's a process that you have to go through. I think a lot of younger writers and artists, they think that you just come in and you just automatically are just writing fire, which there are days where you do have that, but more often than not, they're losers. And you just have to keep plugging away. It's a numbers game like anything else. It's gambling, essentially.
Yeah, you have to way overwrite. I throw, I'll listen to something I wrote 6 weeks ago. I'll just be like, no, and I just drag it down to the trash bin. So, yeah, like you said, not everyone's a winner, but you have to way over. So, like, you'll hear, a 10 album, a 10 song album, I meant to say, and then but there was 50 tracks that got whittled down, and you got to throw away the clunkers. That's one thing I think I would say to a younger musician is not everything. A lot of people are like, oh, it must be good because I wrote it, right? So that's a hard thing to overcome. Is you have to be able to throw away your own stuff. Not everything you're gonna do. I don't care who you are. If you're Paul, I'm sure Paul McCartney throws away songs. You have to be you can't be a hoarder about your songs. You got to be able to, and so you have to be personally attached to them to actually flush them out and make them something that you care about. But then you have to also be able to let go of it and get rid of it. And then, and then another thing I would tell a younger musician is way overwrite. Be able to throw stuff away and way overwrite. And then live with. I like to live. I don't know about you, Will, but I like to live with stuff for a bit because I'll get real excited about an idea and I'll be down here and doing all this stuff, and then I'll listen to it the next day and I'll be like, So I like to kind of live with stuff.
I'm the same way. Sometimes I find that I live with stuff for too long. That happens sometimes. And then we get what's known as demoitis, right? But absolutely what he said, you have to be, as committed as you are with developing a song, you have to be just as committed and willing to throw it out.
Yeah.
So I don't have a lot of any more questions from me personally, but I do want to jump into a couple that your fans wrote. So this is specifically from them.
Okay.
So someone literally wrote out 10 questions almost, but we've covered most of it. That same person also wanted to know about your work with George Lynch. They said that they couldn't find any articles about it. So curious about that one.
So I met George Lynch when we were recording our second album, too. About 5 or 6 years later, I was at a restaurant standing outside, and I looked over, and it was George Lynch, and he goes, I've been trying to find your number and get your number from people. I don't know if you have some kind of secret service that protects you, but so he told me that he had some songs that he thought that I would do really well on and wanted to know if I was interested. And I said, sure. And he sent me over a few songs, and one of them called Brand New Day, what it ended up being called. I wrote lyrics, sang it over, sent it over to him. He loved it. We did 4 or 5 more songs. The name of the George Lynch album that I worked on with him is called Kill All Control, by the way.
Good to know. And then, Aaron, this one is for you. How did you get involved with Earshot?
Let me think. Okay, so I used to be in a band called Breaking Benjamin, and we used to do. I don't know if we ever did a proper tour, Will. I can't remember. I know we did a bunch of shows and festivals or something together.
Yeah, we did some festivals, and I think we did a short run on and off. We do 2 or 3 shows and then off and then back out at another point, and then some festivals.
Right, and that's going way back. I don't know, that was probably 2003 or something, 2002.
2004, 2005.
Yeah. So we had hung a little bit backstage, and we hit it off. Actually, right when we met, we just kind of hit it off, and I'm sure we threw back a couple beers or something, along the way. But and I heard his songs on the radio, and I saw them play live, and I dug it, and so it's fun to be in the band now because I was also a fan prior, so that adds an interesting element for me personally. But we stayed in touch off and on over the years, and I think it was like last summer or something, like late last summer. I called him. I was working on some solo material here or something, and I called him out of the blue. I was like, "Hey man, would you sing on one of my solo, cut off my, a solo album I was working on?" And he was like, "Sure." And then here we are. So, and then, I started learning songs through email.
And then as soon as everything calms down, and touring is able to resume and things like that, I'm assuming you guys are gonna go back on the road. Is there anywhere that you haven't hit that you would like to? I know you've got fans in Russia that are asking if you'll ever come there, and all sorts of different countries.
That would be cool. It's funny, since, being in a big band before, with that group, we never went overseas. So I've actually, weirdly, I've never been out of America. So I'm like,
Oh, wow.
I need some stamps in my passport. Let's go. Do it. I'm up for it.
Yeah, no, I mean, we haven't done a proper, extensive tour in a really long time. Putting new music out like this Alanis Morissette track that I think people are really going to enjoy, will help sort of, rile up the troops a little bit, and our fans will be able to get back in touch with our fans, and hopefully even make new fans, along the way. So, we kind of have a sketch of a blueprint of a plan of how we'd like it to roll out, and but we're flexible at the same time. We'll take it as it comes, so to speak.